breaking barriers and bridging the gaps between patients and doctors. Welcome to Brainstorming with the Docs and your co-hosts, Dr. Glenn Harrison and Dr. Kolby Condos.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Brainstorming with the Docs. I'm Dr. Kolby Condos, my co-host, Dr. Glenn Harrison. Today, what we are going to cover is something that is a question that commonly arises in both of our practices, and that is, hey, doc, what do you think about this diet? Or what do you think about this diet? And while we've done some of these topics in the past, we're going to go through how you should look at implementing diets into your day-to-day life.
That's
If
right.
this is your first time listening to the podcast or listening or watching on the telecast, and you have questions about health, your own health conditions, common health conditions, aspects of health that maybe you have questions on regarding, I turn on the notifications because we're going to continue to do this every week, and hopefully we can get to your question. So without beating around the bush too much, how's it going, buddy? Let's break down some of these diets.
I'm doing great. I like this topic because, over the years I learned what I once thought was the right diet for the right thing, what I once thought was actually detrimental. And you could actually be digging yourself into a hole and going into a direction that is it's complete opposite of where you need to go. Yeah, as we were talking about how to, what are great analogies for what could be the right diet. A good way is like a workout. What do you want to achieve with your workout? So not every diet fits for everybody, and not every diet is for every condition. And we're going to debunk some of these here. So yeah, if you want to put on muscle, would marathon running be a good fit? Never.
Yeah, not the case, right? If you want to be an endurance athlete, are you going to go out there and throw up a bunch of heavy weight? Probably not.
Yeah, look at the body type of the activity, and but yeah, so that's the same thing with diet. So what are some of the fad diets, Dr. Kolby? What would you say? Some of them that we see. All
right, I'm just going to go off the cuff here and talk about 3 that I've experienced since last Monday. How's that? Mm-hmm. So since last Monday, I've had patients ask me about keto. I've had patients ask me about the carnivore diet, and I've had patients ask me about the paleo diet, and I've also had patients ask me about veganism. So those are just 4 in the last week that I've had questions about. So I figure that'd be a good 4 to start with, at least. What about yourself?
Great. I get the Mediterranean diet thrown out there a few times and different things, but those are the basics. I think those are the same ones that people hear of all the time. So pick the first one. Let's jump into keto.
All right, so keto, we've actually done a podcast on this. So if you guys want a little bit more thorough information on the ketogenic diet, refer back to the keto podcast.
That's right.
But I think that ultimately when we talk about diets, it really depends on what you want to go through. If you are going to go through keto, if you're thinking about utilizing keto in your day-to-day lives, that would be when you are looking for options to lean down. You're looking for ways to help control some blood sugar dysregulation maybe. And honestly, the biggest thing that people come in, and the biggest reason they want to start using keto, is because I hear it every single time. My friend so-and-so started the keto diet and they dropped tons of weight. Well, the reason that is because when you go into the ketogenic diet, and it's not the easiest diet to follow, because you're going to have to cut out a lot of simple sugars. You're going to have to cut out carbohydrates. You're going to have to move to fats and proteins and things like that. But when you get into the ketogenic state, your body actually burns ketones for energy instead of glucose. And then that's when you start to break down fat. That's the most common reason that people in my clinic ask me about the ketogenic diet. What about yourself?
That's the same thing. I'll get it. Sometimes people, if they're courageous enough, they might be a type 2 and try to type 2 diabetic and jump into it. Some people even, and I know we talked about this when we were discussing this podcast, of even type 1s trying it. Okay. And that can be a problem. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So type 1 diabetics, you need to be careful if you are going to try the ketone or the ketogenic diet, because you can actually go into a state called ketoacidosis. Mm-hmm. And that is extremely dangerous. And can have like long long-term consequences neurologically. It can cause, I mean, you just want to be very, very cautious if you are going to implement the ketogenic diet into your life and you are a type 1 diabetic.
Yeah, and if you're thinking about that, definitely don't just dive into it yourself. Make sure you're working with a healthcare provider that actually knows it, not just pharmaceuticals, but actually knows it, because there's benefits to it. So that's a common one, and so that's maybe where a ketogenic diet would be used for, and maybe wouldn't be used for. Another one, and you might as well just jump into this one right away, Dr. Kolby, and that's going to be veganism.
Yeah, this is one that I guess there's a lot of people that do it because for ethical reasons, which is fine. That's their choice. From a healthcare standpoint, I think that people don't really understand in a lot of cases how necessary proteins and cholesterols are from animal sources.
That's right.
When you look at your ability to produce neurotransmitters, or you look at your...
Sorry, I'll just interrupt you there. What kind of person, what are adverse symptoms, if there are going to be, it's not for everybody, I'm interrupting you here, what adverse symptoms would you see with a vegan diet?
So I can run us through a case real quick even. This is a perfect segue into this. So I had a patient, they were in their late 60s, came in, the epitome of health, right? Epitome of health, ate really healthy. They were vegan, didn't eat any animal protein. When I first saw them, I was like, "Ooh, man, they kind of look malnourished." Had a history of fatigue and severe migraines, and ran some blood work on them. That's like a common theme in this podcast, is we're always talking about running blood work, right?
Yeah.
But we ran some blood work, and her cholesterol was like through the roof, right? Her inflammatory markers were through the roof, and I didn't do any neurotransmitter testing because that has questionable reliability. But we did a lot of questionnaires and kind of teased out the information that we thought was pertinent as far as like what she was suffering from other than the fatigue and this kind of stuff. And what it came down to is like, I was like, you just are not getting enough fats from animal sources to manufacture neurotransmitters. And neurotransmitters are how your brain, it's a little chemical that your brain and your nervous system uses to signal to other systems. You know, like cortisol is to help with your stress.
So just for the people listening, you said animal proteins, animal fats are required to produce neurotransmitters.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you're not consuming those in your diet, naturally you can be deficient or imbalanced.
Right. And then you can also get things like when I looked at, we ran a hormone panel on her and her estrogen was like through the roof. And I was like, why is it through the roof? Well, she was eating a lot of soy-based proteins, right? So I looked at it and I'm like, okay, this patient is estrogen toxic. Now she's got issues with, progesterone and testosterone and estrogen. So all of her sex hormones were all over the place as well. So it was really difficult to work with this particular patient because they weren't necessarily overly enthused about changing the way that they were eating. But in the long term, like after talking with both herself and her husband, we decided that she was willing to make some changes to her diet. And actually migraines went away almost immediately. Haven't came back. I haven't seen her. I talked to her probably like 9 months ago. And this would be the first time I've talked to her in probably a year. And the migraine stuff had resolved. A lot of her fatigue levels were better. She had like chronic pain stuff that all went away. And it was all perception for her, where she thought she was eating a really, really healthy diet, but wasn't necessarily the case for her.
Yeah. That's pretty remarkable. On people who go down one path, but then it makes things more detrimental. And I have a case to touch on with yours because it just came to me when you started to talk about it. There was this lady, she was mid 60s, late 60s, and she had energy issues, and energy was a big one, but she was also, you probably know where I'm going to go with this. She was also dealing with a lot of anxiety and depression. And again, the same thing. We opened it up and looked at her blood, and one of her dietary choices was to be, was a very strict, rigid, disciplined vegetarian, and that that were good for her. She had her reasons why that worked for her, or why she wanted to do that. But then when we looked at her blood, she was excessively anemic, and she was suffering with fatigue and sleep problems and anxiety and depression for the better part of 25 years. And it played a big role in her life. That was just her identity. And when the labs revealed that she was also anemic. She wanted to look at her health because of her emotions. That was the biggest thing, and her energy. And lo and behold, her diet that shouldn't have caused those problems was the biggest cause to her problems.
Yeah. And as far as that goes, so when you're saying anemic, for those of you that don't know, there's a couple different types of anemia, but what he's talking about is an iron deficiency anemia. And when you have an iron, it's really common in people who are vegans or vegetarians to have iron deficiency anemia because we get a lot of our iron from red meat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Thanks for backing me up on that. So that's so she needed to get iron intake in her body, and she needed animal fats and animal proteins to start improving her brain health, and it did. It was significant over the course of a few months. Her life has changed. Everything changed about it, and it's too bad. If she would have known that, maybe she would have found some ways to blend in some to change her diet at least a little bit to get the benefits of both before her body had to become detrimental.
Right.
For health.
And the whole thing with like the mental health part of it that you were talking about, I mean, iron is needed for the production of serotonin. When you look at people with
the feel-good neurotransmitter.
Yeah, you bet. So these people who are on, doses of antidepressants for a long period of time, and they never really even look at what their diet is like, they could potentially just be anemic, and you will never get out of that depression unless you fix that anemia. So
that's right. All the talk therapy, all the psychotherapy, those are all great. But if the brain doesn't have the machinery to work with to process these great interventions, it's not gonna happen.
Exactly.
So yeah, diets are powerful. Be cautious with them. So that's one, because we got tangled up in that one. I wanted to hit that one hard. Now, maybe do you want to jump into the carnivore diet just a little bit?
Yeah. So I think that the carnivore diet, that's, I mean, we've heard this super recently on, one of the most popular podcasts or YouTube channels in the world right now, where they were talking about the carnivore diet, and, they're talking about how awesome it was, and it might work well for them. But I think that having more information than you need is going to be beneficial if you decide you're going to try to implement this into your life. When I look at the carnivore diet, I look at from an energy standpoint. In our gut, we use what are called short chain fatty acids that we get from fiber from fruits and vegetables to help us maintain a healthy gut membrane and healthy energy levels within our gut. So what does that mean for someone who doesn't deal with this? That means that you use plants via vegetables and fruits to make energy in your intestinal tract. And that helps you to absorb other nutrients, and it helps you to maintain a healthy flora because you've got a healthy brush border, and that's how you absorb everything. So when you go on a carnivore diet, what can happen is that your energy levels can actually crash because you are no longer getting the precursors to those short chain fatty acids in the form of fiber in your diet anymore. You're only eating fats and animal protein. So that is one way that you can be incredibly detrimental to your health. Why don't you jump in, because I know you got some stuff you want to add.
Yeah. So the carnivore diet, people can get benefits from it, and the reason why they get benefits from the carnivore diet is because mostly for most people, if they're just eating animal protein, they usually don't have an immune response, so they usually don't have allergies or inflammatory responses to animal protein. So a lot of their symptoms can go away. And if they're spiking their body in junk food and simple carbohydrates, they naturally are holding on to more weight, and they say, the carnivore diet is the best thing in the world. Short term, they can get out of short-term inflammatory conditions. But like you were saying, Dr. Kolby, if you aren't consuming any plant species, healthy plants, not grains and wheat and rye and barley, living off breads and cereals. But healthy plant species, you can't increase your biodiversity, your bacterial diversity. So your bacterial diversity, the healthiest people have more bacterial diversity, different species of bacteria in their gut. And these bacteria, their fuel source is what you said, short chain fatty acids. And those come from plants. So if you don't consume any plants, your biodiversity comes down. It will lead to all sorts of, new autoimmune conditions. Or we're made out of bugs, so we want healthy bugs in our gut. And the more plant diversity we consume, the more biodiversity we develop. So by avoiding, and the only way we can get biodiversity is through plant species, not animal species. So naturally, our biodiversity on carnivore diets, they will get smaller and smaller and smaller. And then the moment you go to try to introduce something else, you don't have bugs to break down those foods, and you'll have a response, an allergic response. So carnivore diets, they're kind of a new thing. And I think for very sick people, they can get short-term benefits immediately, but I think it'll bite them in the butt down the road. They'll probably have bigger problems down the road. So that's the carnivore diet. I don't know what I would say long-term benefits are with it. I can't see it. And then just to take a step back, these very aggressive diets, humans have never ever played this extreme with their diet. So these extreme diets our bodies aren't designed for that. We're not carnivores by nature or vegetarians by nature, not our brains the way they are right now. So maybe one more thing, because I guess we did talk about vegan diets and losing weight. And yeah, we did talk about hormones. What about vegan diets, Dr. Kolby? I know you have a family practice. What about vegan diets, vegetarian diets, and fertility?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't even have thought of that actually, but that's a big thing. When you look at, if you're eating, and we've talked about this actually, didn't we talk about this in a previous one too as well? We talked about sex hormones and exogenous places for estrogens, right? If you are eating stuff that is, a xenoestrogen, so it's an estrogen that doesn't occur normally in your body, you're getting it from some other place, whether that's plastics or, soy is a big one. So you think about tofu, they use a lot of that, soy-based protein replacement because soybeans are rich in protein, but they're also a big source of estrogen. So then you think about, people who have huge levels of estrogen, and then they can develop stuff or conditions like polycystic ovarian syndrome. And then they can have issues with their sex hormone. They can have issues with their menstrual cycle. I mean, all of these things are issues that can be manifested from dietary changes if you're not looking at a healthy and well-balanced diet. That's just, my wife has had a patient that has had issues with infertility for a lot of time. And when they looked at her diet, it was just, and she thought she was being super healthy, but when you look at it, she wasn't eating any sort of animal protein or fats. She was very, very strict. And even when we looked at her inflammatory levels, Oh,
your video went out.
It sure did. What did I do here? Uh-oh.
So you mean to say that I got to talk the rest of the? Oh, there we go. You showed up for a second. There you go. So you're also tech.
Yeah. So, she thought she was eating super healthy, but when we looked at her diet and we looked at the inflammatory markers and then we ran the sex hormones, they were all over the place. And, after we teased all this information out of her through her history, we realized that, there was going to have to be some pretty significant changes dietary wise if she wanted to actually get where she wanted to, which was, the ability to have a baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yeah, none of these diets are easy. So people are really, they're really fixed on them. They believe in them, but they can go the other way. So there's some fads with these diets we've got to be careful with. So what is the right diet? What really is the right diet? I guess that's the question. How would you answer that question, Dr. Kolby?
Yeah. I guess it depends on what you want, right? So, and that sounds like a cheap cop-out, but it honestly is the truth.
What do you want to achieve?
Yeah, right? Exactly. And how aggressive are you willing to be to get there? Like I have patients that use the keto diet. I've used the keto diet. A lot of my physician friends use the keto diet, but like we've talked about before, it's not a long-term solution. That is something that I mix intermittently in my yearly routine, I guess you could call it, where I try to go in and out of keto a couple of different times, but I'm not always there because I don't believe that that is healthy. And the research is starting to show that. So if you're looking to lose weight and it's healthy and safe for you to do so, the keto is going to be a good way of doing that. If you're looking at, I want to build some muscle mass, what is the best way for me to do that? The keto diet is going to be a good way for you to do that because it's rich in animal proteins and fats. If you're looking at, I honestly recommend my patients just eat a healthy, balanced diet where we look at eliminating a lot of the simple carbohydrates and the grains and the starches that cause dramatic blood sugar swings. I try to preach eating for blood sugar stability so that you don't have these big insulin surges, and your blood sugar is stable all the time, or theoretically most of the time. You're only eating when you're hungry, and then you get things like improved sleep. You can get weight loss because you're not having these dramatic swings. And
yeah. So back to what is the right diet? It's just to summarize, it's the outcomes. It's specific to the outcomes you want to achieve, but very seldom does one very extreme diet going to be healthy for you, because our physiology is not designed for one extreme diet that goes away from the omnivore styled physiology that we have. And if we deviate away from that, very seldom are we going to have a good, sustainable, long path. Sometimes people take on these certain diets. They have to supplement like crazy, especially like the vegan diets, the vegetarian diets. They have to supplement like crazy to make up for the nutrients that are lost avoiding animal protein. I know you do too, Dr. Kolby. We have these people, and they just want to. Again, they're ethical or whatever concerns. So then they are compensating with a bunch of supplements. So I think maybe that's the takeaway when you started to get into balance. That's always going to be the safest, the best long-term solution.
Yeah, and I think you hit it exactly on the head. I think that using these extreme diets to springboard something would be a good way of using them. And that's how I use them in my practice. I'm like, this is not a long-term solution. We're going to use this to springboard you to where you want to be. But then after you get rolling on the right path, that's when you start implementing like a diverse, healthy, balanced diet, because then that is going to be more sustainable for you long-term. And you're going to get the desired health outcomes that you're looking for eating a more diverse diet, because then you're going to be just healthier in general.
For sure. So in wrapping, I know if people have been watching this podcast or listening to it for a while, they're probably going to know how we're going to close this. What is the right diet for me? Well, the direction, what you want to achieve, but then what are you going to do first? You're going to find out what's going on in the blood, like some of the cases that you had or the one that I had. If I didn't know mine was anemic, it could have went down that path for a long time, the wrong path. So probably some lab work is going to be the kicker. Open that door up, find out what you can do, what you can't do, if you are looking for that springboard. But these springboards, they should be monitored. They should be managed. I know you have seen problems with keto diets as well.
Yep.
Yeah. So I guess to summarize, there is no one diet that fits all. It's based off the direction you want to go in, but chances are, if it's an extreme diet, like some of the ones we mentioned, it's going to ideally it's going to be as a springboard. I like the phrase you used there, Dr. Kolby, to get you where you are. But if an extreme diet can create extreme changes in the body, good or bad, so you have to make sure your body is ready for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you guys got any information from this podcast and telecast today, or you'd like to share that information with your friends and loved ones, hit like and subscribe and comment below and share it. And stay tuned, because we're going to keep doing this. We're going to keep rolling out content on common health conditions or concerns or questions that a lot of people have. If you have a question yourself, you can get a hold of us at info@brainstormingwiththedocs.com. You can get us on our websites, which mine is www.northlakeschiropractic.com. Dr. Glenn's is www.drharrison.com. or you can Google either one of us and you'll find us. And
yeah, and there'll always be our links in the notes
descriptions. Yeah, for sure. And again, like we said, if you have questions, comments, or whatever, leave it below, and we'll try our best to get back to you. And yeah, we'll keep rolling this stuff out. So we'll have to come up with another topic idea for the next one, but I'm sure we'll come up with something enlightening. So
we will. That was great, Dr. Kolby. Thanks for that.
All right, my man. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.